advised to give a statement every time we're going to cover this case, and it'll be very brief. YouTube allows educational content, and this could also include graphic content or things of that nature that could describe certain situations. Reading a court transcript falls under that because it's educational content, and I will be providing context to this educational content. There are no images other than photos of the attorneys involved in the case, but nothing else further. Describing what is happening in court, it's only to educate about this case. This is Jane Doe's direct examination on June 5th. This is the very first day that we see Jane Doe on the stand. Now, before we get started with this video, I do want to give a warning. First of all, any variations of Jane Doe's real name will be blocked on my channel. The name has been blocked out completely. So if you're spelling out her name, or if you're, think you're funny and you're putting it in the chat, not only will you be blocked, but you will be blocked. Okay. But her name is blocked, and various variations of it is blocked on my channel. Again, that is to respect whatever the court order is, even though we're not there and we're not necessarily bound by it. I still am going to respect that court order. So please keep in mind, if you attempt to do it, you're going to be blocked. So let's get started with this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about Jane Doe's testimony. Let's go. This is Jane Doe's direct examination with the prosecution on June 5th. Okay. Now, if you remember, on the stand on June 5th, we had Bana, who was finishing up. And then we had another person by the name of Enrique Santos, who was with the prosecution, who did the direct testimony on the photos and forensics and stuff like that. That was a very brief testimony. So we're going to get right into Jane Doe. Now, Jane Doe identifies herself, so we're going to skip through that. She spells out her name. She further confirms that Jane Doe is a pseudonym, and then she identifies herself through her driver's license. So the jury knows who she is, but others do not, which we're going to leave it at that. How far did you go in school? I did about half a semester, so in junior college. What kind of work did you do after leaving junior college? I worked in restaurants. I was modeling, various modeling jobs. I like to direct your attention now to a time period between 2021 to 2024. Who, if anyone, were you in a relationship with over those years? Sean Combs. Okay. Exhibits are shown. Jane, do you recognize the person in that photograph? Yes. Who is that? Sean Combs. Do you know him by any other names? Yes. What names do you call him when you were in a relationship with him? Sean, Baby, Ernie, Snookums. Why did you call him Ernie? Because that was our nickname for one another. So who were you? Bert. And who was he? Ernie. Like from Sesame Street? Yes. Okay. How did you first meet Sean? I first met Sean on a girls' trip to Miami. And about what year was that? Late 2020? How did the girls' trip to Miami lead to you meeting Sean? At the time, Sean was romantically involved with one of my girlfriends. And was that girlfriend one of the girls who you went on this trip with to Miami? Yes. Who paid for the girls' trip you took? Sean. Where were you all staying? In Miami. How did you first meet Sean on that girls' trip? He invited us all over for dinner and like a thing that night. And I remember we went all over there as a group to his residence in Miami. What residence is that? The one on Star Island. Do you remember the address by any chance? 2-Star Island. Before going to 2-Star Island in 2020, had you met Sean in passing before? I had, yes. About how long before 2020 had you met Sean in passing? I would say 5 years prior. And at what type of event did you meet Sean in passing? It was like a Father's Day celebration. And were there other types of people there? There were. Other than meeting in passing, a Father's Day celebration, had you had any other in-person interactions with Sean before that Miami trip in 2020? No. How long were you in Miami during that 2020 trip? We were there for about 5 days. And on how many of those days did you see Sean? About three or so? What do you remember doing with Sean and your girlfriends on the first day when you saw him? I remember it was at night and we went over there and I just saw Sean and he was really charming and really nice. And I was really drawn to him like pretty instantly. And he was really hospitable, really sweet, really friendly. We had a nice night all together. You said that night started out at Two Star. Is that right? Yes. Where did you go from Two Star? We all went on a yacht. What happened on the yacht? We were just having drinks, partying, being friendly. There was a little bit of flirting going on. Just a nice night altogether. And when you say a little bit of flirting, between who? Between Sean and I. And you said party. Were you using rugs that night? No. What, if any, private conversations did you have with Sean on that yacht? At that point, I had to use the restrooms and he happened to be there as well. That's when we bumped into each other and he was like, "Take down my number and let me get your number." And we exchanged numbers then. And that's when we decided we should have a nickname. And he said Bert and I said Ernie. And then, yeah. So, did you exchange phone numbers? Yes. And after that, were you in contact over the phone? We would text message, yes. During the same Miami trip, what, if any, rugs did you remember seeing? I remember seeing a pink powder substance. And on which day, if you can remember? Do you remember seeing those rugs? The first night. What do you remember about that? I remember after the yacht, we all went to the pool, and one of the girls had requested that she wanted some rugs. And I guess while we were there in the pools, I don't want you to guess. So, one of your girlfriends requested rugs. How did Sean respond? He said, okay. And then what did you see happen a little while later? That somebody came to bring the rugs? Where did you go with Sean at that point? At the studio and inside the property, Two Star? Did you and Sean go alone to the studio? Yes. What did you see happen in the studio? I saw this man pull out this pink powder. And what, if anything, did the man say? Well, I remember I was like, is this safe? And I remember both of them looking at me like, um, kind of like just gave me just like a look. Yeah, it's the best. Who did you see that man give the pink powder to? Sean. And then what did you see Sean do with it? Just take it to the girl. I believed he used it as well. And he took it back to the pool around us. Yeah. And gave it to one of your girlfriends. Yes. And what do you remember happening after that? I remember my girlfriend was pretty upset. I think she assumed that there was something going on with Sean and I at that moment, and we then left the party pretty abruptly. You said your girlfriend was upset. Is this the girlfriend who was in a relationship with Sean? Yes. What other activities do you remember doing with your girlfriends and Sean on that first trip? I remember the first day we just had a pool party and he just hosted a pool party just for us. And we were just having drinks and having lunch by the pool. It was a nice day. And then what do you remember from your last day in Miami? I remember he invited us all over for a movie night and we were in the theater and all watching a movie. Where was the theater? Inside of the residence. What do you remember happening while you were watching the movie with Sean and your girlfriends? I remember he texted me and he was like, "Are you okay? I'd like to take you out." And I was just saying to him that it felt a little complicated in the moment, but yeah, like we'll be in touch. So you were texting during the movie? Yes. And was the girlfriend of yours who was seeing Sean in a relationship with him there as well? Yes. After that movie night, where did you go? I went back home. And at that time, where were you living generally? On the East Coast? And after that trip, how, if at all, did you remain in contact with Sean? Just through text message, phone call? And what do you remember about those communications in the weeks after the first Miami trip in 2020. I remember he was flirtatious. He was inviting me to Miami like that generally. Okay. She's shown exhibits. Jane, do you recognize this? Yes, yes. And what is this? It's a text message between myself and Sean. Could you please tell us the first text that you sent to Sean? Bert. And how did he respond? Ernie. And then can we go to the next page and look at that what Sean sent you after that? What did he send you after that? He says, "Call me, Ernie. How are you?" What are the dates of these messages? November 30th, 2020. And were the first two November 29th, 2020? Yes. Over the course of your texting relationship and communication after that Miami trip, who pursued whom? Sean. Sean pursued you? Sean pursued who? Me. And what was Sean asking you to do over those messages and phone calls? He was just asking if he could see me, if I would be interested in coming to Miami, if I'd be interested to come to Miami. And at first, how did you respond? At first, I was still a little hesitant. Why were you hesitant at first? Because I still being considerate of my girlfriend who still had feelings for him. And yeah, what if anything changed? Well, my girlfriend ended up getting engaged and she moved overseas and became, a fiance. So I felt that she was okay that I could potentially entertain this Sean thing. And about how long after that Miami trip in November of 2020 did your girlfriend get engaged to someone else? Fairly quickly. So was she seeing her soon to be fiance at that same time she was seeing Sean? Yes. And after she moved overseas, how did you feel about possibly seeing Sean? I felt more open to it. After that, what did you discuss with Sean? I told him that I would actually be in Miami already for an event and that I would like to see him. So, when were you going to Miami already for an event? Late January of 2021? And did you, in fact, go to Miami in January of 2021? I did. And what did you and Sean agree to do when you went to Miami then? He asked if we could get a hotel for my stay, and I said sure, and that we would meet. What do you remember about the first time you saw Sean on that January 2021 trip? I remember when I first saw Sean, he walked in the door of the hotel and he was just like larger than life. He had a very big personality, super charming, very passionate, even just in how he speaks, just overall really charming. And he just really immediately immersed in conversation with me. Where did you spend the first date with Sean? We spent it at the Intercontinental Hotel in a room. We had dinner there on the balcony. And how long did your first date with Sean end up lasting? I would say 5 days. I want to focus on the beginning of the first date. At the beginning of the first date, what, if any, past relationships did you discuss with Sean? I was very open with him that I had previously dated somebody who he was really close to, and that I understood that my child's father and him had like dislikes with one another. He was very, very vocal that he didn't care, not about my past girlfriends, not about my child's father. And then the only thing maybe that he had concerns about was that the person that he was really close to. I want to make sure that we understand that. So, first, you said that you'd been in a relationship with someone who was really close to Sean. Is that right? Yes. How long before this first date in 2021 had that relationship with someone Sean was close to ended? I would say 2015. Are you estimating? Yes. And then you mentioned that your child's father was someone who did not get along with Sean. Is that right? Yes. And how many children do you have? One. And did you and Sean talk about those two relationships on your first date? Yes. And generally, what did Sean say about them? Generally, he just said that he didn't mind and he was okay. It didn't matter. What if any past relationship with what if any past relationships with Sean did you talk about during the first date? Just a relationship with my girlfriend at the time. And what did you discuss about that? He just said that that was really more like a friendship more than anything, that it wasn't really a romantic as maybe she had assumed it was. So, after you cleared up the air about your past relationships, what happened on the rest of your that first night with Sean? We made we made lots of love. I remember it was just amazing, and I remember it was like morning time, and then we just decided to go for a walk on the beach. So, where did you see the sunrise that morning? On that on the balcony. With whom? Sean. Then after that, what did you two do for the rest of your trip in Miami? After that, we just went to a proper date night. We went to a restaurant, we got dressed up, and we had more of a mellow, like one on one sitting and properly dating date night. And then, did you spend the next couple of days together too? Yes. Other than the first date, what kinds of things did you and Sean talked about? Well, you just getting to know one another, just getting to know one another. When you left Miami after that trip in January of 2021, how did you feel about Sean? I was pretty head over heels for Sean. After you left Miami in January of 2021, how did you and Sean keep communicating? Over FaceTime? Over calls? After January 21st 2021 trip, what, if any, trips did you take in February of 2021? We went to Turks and Caicos and also the Bahamas. Who's we? Sean and I. How did you end up on that trip? I told him that my birthday was coming up and he was super excited and said we should go on an island getaway. And I was so super excited as well because I've never been to Turks. And so he took me there and it was amazing. How did you get to Turks? I flew to Miami first and then we took a plane to Turks. When you say his plane, what are you referencing? I'm referencing Sean's private jet. And who did you remember going to Turks with on that trip? I remember his assistant KK was there, the chef, the butler, the photographer. At some point, there was a barber. Do you recognize more exhibits get pulled? Do you recognize this person in the photograph? I do. Who is that? KK. Do you know her full name? Christina Coram. And do you know what her role was for Sean? She was the chief of staff, like main assistant. Okay. How long did you stay in Turks on that trip in February of 2021? I would say we stayed like about 9 days in Turks and then like 6 days in the Bahamas. So you went from Turks to the Bahamas? Yes, yes. What do you remember from the time you spent in Turks in February of 2021? I remember so many lovely things. It was just really us. And so we just had a lot of connections and a lot of time together. As you would assume, just really passionate about one another, lots of attraction. It was a very lust fill. Were you getting a lot of alone time with Sean? Yes. More exhibits are pulled. Before we play this video, can you tell us if you recognize this, Jane? Yes, this is the villa that we stayed at Turks. And do you know who took this video? Myself. Okay, we can go ahead and play this video. Video plays. Who did we see at the end of this video? Sean. And where are you? What are we seeing in this video? We're at the villa pool and I'm just taking a video of the ambiance and Sean and just the weather and the vibe. And you said the villa. Had Sean rented out a whole villa just for you two for the trip? Yes, he did. Okay, you take that down. During your trips to Turks, what, if anything, did you tell Sean about your own life and personal circumstances? I was very open about just that I was a single mother, and for work, I was just on social media, and I would say I would call myself a content creator, influencer, and that's pretty much it. So, what kind of work were you doing at that time? I was advertising brands on my social media. During the same trip, what, if any, gifts do you remember Sean giving you? I remember it was actually when I first met him in Miami. That first trip he had given me a love bracelet that said LOVE on it. So I just got that pretty early on. And at the end of the trip, I do remember he said that he was going to send me some money, that he knew that he had taken me out for days. And I really appreciated that gesture because it was many days away. So at that point, did Sean offer to send you money? At the very end of the trip to where? Turks. And had you asked him for money? No. How much money did he tell you he would send you? 10,000? And what did he say when he told you that he was sending you 10,000? Just to have it because he knew that I was away for a while and just here. So during that trip, were you able to do any of the work you normally do? No. During the same Turks trip, what if any rugs did you use? X. Now, before that trip, had you used rugs? Yes. How many times had you used rugs in your life before that trip to Turks? Twice. What rugs had you used twice? X. And on what occasion had you used X twice? On New Year's Eve on 2 occasions? And about how long before this 2021 trip was there? I would say 2014 and 2015, something like that. Are you estimating? Yes. Whose idea was it for you to use X in Turks? Sean. And how many times did Sean suggest you take X at Turks? Just at various points in the trip? So, about how many times do you remember Sean giving you X to use in Turks? I would say maybe like 10 times. And you said you were there for about 9 days? Yes, in Turks. How did Ruggs first come up with Sean? I remember we were inside the pool and we were drinking and just having a good time. And he opens his hand with a pill and he's like, "Here, take this. And it will just be more fun," or something like that. So I ended up taking the whole thing. What happened after you took the whole pill Sean handed to you? I was walking down the beach with him and then it was just hit me. And I remember I fell to the ground and I started grabbing the sand, throwing the sand. My body was just like almost like convulsing. I think I was screaming a little. What do you remember after you fell to the sand? I remember his butler and KK tried to help me and they're trying to figure out what was wrong or what they could do. And then they eventually put me in a shower, like a lukewarm shower, just to kind of calm my senses. How did you feel after the shower? It started to subside after that. And about how long after that did you take another X pill? Throughout the trip, I remember every other day we would take it. And this time I would just take them in really small pieces. Who decided how big a dose of X you would get? Sean. And who gave you all the X you took on that trip? Sean. When you took a smaller dosage of the X from Sean, how did the smaller dosage make you feel? It made me feel relaxed, euphoric, sexual. It just enhanced touch and sense. It made me feel like more loving and more flirtatious with him. How long did those effects last each time you took the X from Sean? I feel like they could last about 12 hours or so. And then what was the experience like after those 12 hours? I would say either we would keep going or we just take something to just relax and go to bed. So when you say we would keep going, does that mean take more X? Yes. Could you describe the experience of coming down from X? Yes, my first experience when I was with Sean, it was like your mind was kind of readjusting to the environment. Like it was coming from down from a high and you're just tired and you want to go to sleep. When you went to the Bahamas with Sean, did you continue using rugs with him? Yes. What rugs? X. Who gave you the X? Sean. About how much X or how many times do you remember Sean giving you X on that trip? I would say just 2 more times then. At the end of the trip, what money did Sean ultimately send to you? He uh, he he sent me a wire for 10,000. And did he send that to your bank account? Yes. How much was 10,000 to you at the time in your life? It was a lot of money for me. After the end of that trip, how did you feel about Sean? I was even deeper in my feelings for Sean. I wanted to say we even started using the L word, and I was really deep in it. I really fell head over heels for him. What was your understanding of the status of your relationship with Sean at the end of that trip? He had made it really clear to me that he really liked me, but that he was seeing multiple women. So he was open about that with you. Yes. And how did you react to hearing that? I was okay with it. Why were you okay with it? Because I liked him. So I was okay with it. Did you have the sense that you had the option of a monogamous relationship with him? No, I didn't have that sense. So, what was your understanding of whether Sean would be seeing other people romantically while you were in a relationship with him? I understood that on his end, it was an open relationship. And what was your understanding of whether you would see other people while you were in a relationship with Sean? In my heart, I just wanted to see Sean. So I was monogamous. How long did your dating relationship with Sean last? Until his arrest. Do you know when he was arrested? I think it was August of 2024. Are you estimating? Yes. But did your relationship last through 2024? Yes. And at some point during the periods between 2021 and 2024, did you and Sean take any breaks from your relationship? Yes. How many do you remember? I think maybe two. About when was the first one? I can't remember at that moment. Okay, was the first one short? Yes. Was the second one longer? Yes. About when was the second one? October 2023. And how long were you on a break for from Sean starting from October 2023? About 4 months. When did you get back together with Sean after you took that break in October of 2023? February 2023, or no, I'm sorry, October, February 2024. Okay, so you were on a break in your mind from October 2023 through February 2024. Yes. Okay. We'll talk more about that later, okay? hmm Over the years you were seeing him, how public was your relationship with Sean? It was private. And if anything, and what, if anything, did Sean say to you about keeping your relationship out of the public eye? I think we just both agreed and knew that we would have to keep it private. So, did you post about him on your social media accounts? Maybe just one time, but other than that, no. Over the course of your relationship with Sean, where were you living? I was living in sometimes some portion of it in the East Coast and then the majority of it in the West Coast in California. When did you move from the East Coast to California? June of 2021. And what city did you move into in California? Los Angeles. What, if anything, did Sean give you to help you move to Los Angeles? He gave me money for my move. He gave me $6,000 for a moving truck. I want to focus now on your relationship between the end of the Turks trip in February 2021 and May of 2021, okay? Okay. Over those approximately 3 months, how often did you see Sean in person? I would say every other week or so. And how would you see him in person every other week or so? So he would fly me to him. You say he would fly you to him? Would he pay for you to fly? Yes. Commercially? Yes. And to what city did you fly to see him? I would fly him to Miami. During that same time in between seeing him in person, how did you communicate with Sean? Through text, phone call, FaceTime? Over those 3 months, what, if anything, do you remember Sean giving you? As far as what if any money do you remember him giving you? I just remember he was sweet. He would give me money here and there. In cash or wires? A mix of both. And what would he say when he gave you money? Just because. Over those approximately 3 months between February and May of 2021, how often did you use rugs? Every time I saw him. Every time you saw who? Sean. And who gave you the rugs you used every time you saw him? Sean. What rugs did Sean give you during that period? X, Molly. Sometimes there was Coca-Cola. Sometimes there was something called Kellogg, which is Kellogg. I want to talk about each of those. You've already talked about X. Could you explain how Molly made you feel when you took it? I would say it was kind of an enhanced the same feeling as X. Kind of made you feel sexual and promiscuous and a little corn. And yeah. And then you mentioned Coca-Cola. How did you feel when you took Coca-Cola? It wasn't often I used this rug, but when I did, I would just feel really alert and awake. And then you mentioned Kellogg. Yes. How did you feel when you took that? The one time I did it, I felt not so good on it. It's more like a hallucinogen, like the floor was coming down and the walls were just kind of weird. Now focusing again on those 3 months between February and May of 2021. In what context did Sean give you rugs? Whenever we would start having S. During the same period, what did you learn about how Sean preferred to have S? I learned so many things. I learned he liked to have prawn playing. I learned how he preferred me to dress. And I just learned the things that he really liked sexually. How did Sean tell you he preferred you to dress? He preferred me to dress in a provocative lingerie and a really high, like tripper shoes. And about how long did he want you to be in these outfits while you were using rugs the whole time? And how long would that last usually? At first, it would be like 12 to 24 hours. And what, if any, substance did Sean want you to use on your own body during S? Baby oil. And what did Sean tell you to do with it? To just have it all over my body and his? In what type of rooms between February and May of 2021 would you have this kind of S with Sean? At his residence, in his bedroom? And how was his bedroom lit when you would have these interactions? We would have a red lights on. Now, during those first 3 months, how did you feel about these long-lasting sexual sessions with Sean? I loved him. I really love my partner, and I was just making love with my partner like the whole time, and lots of affection and kissing. I love making. This was really wonderful. I had a really nice. How intense did your relationship feel during the early phase? It felt really intense. Could you explain that? I felt like Sean was really passionate and he brought out a lot of passion out of me too. And the way he would compliment me and be so into me and just really like enjoying one another, like it made me feel really good inside. So, over those 3 months between February and May of 2021, how did you feel about Sean? I love him. I loved him very much. I want to talk about May of 2021. What do you remember happening in your relationship with Sean in May of 2021? I remember that just when we would watch Prawn, we just started to have a lot of fantasy conversations. Do you need to take a break, Jane? No. Who initiated the fantasy conversations you're describing? Sean. And can you explain to us how he initiated that conversation? Just we would just search specific things on these websites. And just in the middle of like being high, like he just really wanted me to fantasize or kind of like really talk about other men and this type of role play about other men. You mentioned you would search on these websites. Are you talking about prawn websites? Yes. So you would be watching prawn? Yes. And you said that he would want you to talk about other men. What did he tell you he wanted you to say about other men? It was more like a question like, do you like what you see there? Do you like that? Do you like that? Can you imagine that? Pretend that that's here and I'm that person. Now, in May of 2025, is there a particular night when you remember him introducing this fantasy talk? Yes. And at that point where he brought it up, objection to the time period, says Miss Garagos. Miss Comey. May of 2021. I'm so sorry. In May of 2021, was there a time when Sean initiated this fantasy talk? Yes. And at that point, when he referenced it, where were you? We were in his bedroom watching Prawn. In what city? Miami. How long had you been awake at that point? I would say 12 or 15 hours into the night, from the evening until the morning. So you had been awake the whole prior day too. Yes. So you had been awake for a total of 24 hours? Yes. And what, if any, rugs had you been using for the last 12 to 15 hours? A mix of X and Molly? And what had you and Sean been doing for the last 15 to 12 to 15 hours? Having S. In the way you describe? Yes. So then what did Sean start to say to you after you had been doing that for 12 to 15 hours? He started saying, I can make this fantasy a reality. If you like to have that happen, I can make that happen. And how did you react? I said, okay. Why did you say okay? Because it seemed like he wanted that and it was turning him on. And I was really into my partner. And I said, okay. Now, when you said okay, did you think about what was going to happen that night? No. When you said okay, did you want to be having S with someone other than Sean? No. So, what did you think you were doing when you said okay to him? Playing into the fantasy? So, you just think this was a fantasy? Yes. How did Sean respond to you when you said okay? I remember I went to the restroom and then I came back out. Sean was in a robe and staring at his phone, like really seriously. How, if at all, had his demeanor changed? He just looked really serious in his phone. And what did Sean say to you when you came out of the bathroom? He said, we can make that happen tonight. How did you react when Sean told you we can make that happen tonight? I was like, tonight? Like, okay. I was taken back a bit, surprised, but like, okay. Why did you say okay? Because my partner was excited. It was already happening, and this was something we were going to do. Were you still high at this point? Yes. What do you remember happening next? I remember being in a hotel room. Do you remember how quickly you got to that hotel room after you saw Sean on his phone? Just within a couple of hours. Do you remember what hotel you went to? Hotel in Miami? And when you got to the hotel room a couple hours after Sean had been on his phone, what did you see in the hotel room? I saw the assistants setting up this room. There was beverages, lights were already red. There was just kind of like a hustle of getting this room ready. Do you remember what assistants were setting up the room? I don't. After the assistant set up the room, who was left in the room? It was me and Sean in the bedroom talking. And what did Sean say to you in the bedroom? He just told me that there was somebody coming and just to relax, that this would be something fun. And he knows the guy, and he's a really nice guy. And I was just super nervous and just listening to him. When Sean said that he knows the guy, what guy did you understand Sean was referring to? I figured he was referring to this fantasy guy that was coming. So, did you understand Sean what was telling you was about to happen? That actual things were going to start happening. Between who? Myself and this guy. Had you met this guy before? No. Did you even know his name at this point? No. What do you and did Sean tell you where he knew this guy from? No. And but did he tell you he already knew the guy? Yes. Do you remember what do you remember happening next? I remember I was in the room by myself for a little bit, and he walks out, greets this guy, and I can hear them talking, and I eventually let me just pause you and ask you. I forgot to ask you, what kind of a hotel room? Was this a regular room or a suite? A suite. So you said he walked out. Who walked out of the bedroom? Sean. And then who did you hear Sean talking with? The man. Another guy? Yes. And then after you heard those, Sean and this other man talking, what happened next? He called me to come outside. Who called you to come outside? Sean. At this point, what were you wearing? I was wearing like lingerie underneath a robe. And what shoes were you wearing? I was wearing the big tripper heels. And who had picked out your outfit and your heels? Myself and Sean. Together? Yes. And when Sean called you out into the room, what did you do? I said hello to everyone. And who did you see with Sean when you walked into the living room of the hotel suite? I saw Don. Who is Don? Don is one of the entertainers. Okay. So more exhibits get pulled up. Jane, do you recognize this person in the photograph? Yes. Who is that? Don. Is that the same Don you told us you met in May of 2021? Yes. Okay. More exhibits are entered. Do you know Don's last name? I don't. Okay. Exhibits are taken down. Now, that night when you first met Don, what did Sean tell you about how Sean knew Don? Not much, really. I could just feel a sense that he had known each other, that they had some familiarity, but he didn't really specify exactly how they knew one another. At a later time, did Sean later tell you how he knew Don? Yes. What did Sean tell you later about how he knew Don? That he was from Cowboys and Angels. What's Cowboys and Angels? It's an escort website. And who first told you about Cowboys and Angel? Sean. Sean. Now about the time you met Don in this hotel room, were the rugs you had taken that night still affecting you? Yes. How did you feel? I was high. Can you tell us what happened after you first walked into the room, into the living room where Don and Sean were? I just remember sitting on the couch with my robe on, and Sean was just telling me to relax and that it was okay. And same with Don. How was your body positioned as Sean was telling you to relax? My legs were crossed, my arms were crossed. I had my robe on. I was nervous. What happened next? Sean was like, just stand up. Like, so I stood up and I started to kind of dance just to kind of get my nerves away. Did you take off the robe? Yes. Who suggested you take off the robe? I think it was just a mix of me and Sean. While you started to dance, what did you see Don do? Getting turned on? What was Don wearing at this point? Shorts? What kind of shorts? I think it was his underwear. What do you remember happening next? I remember Don came closer to me, started me, uh, leg, and just trying to make me feel comfortable. And I started him and just trying to, I don't know. And what was Sean doing while you and Don started to each other? He was watching and himself. What was Sean wearing at this point? Nothing. And you say he was himself? Was he getting a master's degree? Yes. What do you remember happening next? I remember things got a little more hot and heavy with me and Don, and we started like doing um, play, play on one another. Now, as that went on, who, if anyone, suggested that you perform OS on Don? Sean. And what did you do in response? I did that. But how long did that last? Quite a while. And what was Sean doing in the meantime? Watching, talking. What was he saying, if you can remember? I remember he was in a positive mood, just like being encouraging and sweet. What, if anyone, suggested moving to the bedroom? Objection from TD Garagos. Overruled. You can answer that. I remember it was me who started going to the bedroom. Why did you do that? I was kind of ready to kind of speed things up a bit. When you say speed things up a bit, what do you mean? Just to get it going. What happened next? It was time for S. What did you ask for before having S with Don? A condominium? How did Sean react when you asked that Don wear a condominium? He said like he didn't want that. He just said why? These guys are safe. They all get tested all the time. And there's some kind of
cleanness. They're some of the cleanest people, and he can show you his papers, and you don't have to do that. What did you understand Sean referring to when he said these guys get tested all the time? At that time, I don't know, but I assumed. I don't want you to assume. At that time, did you know what he was talking about? No. How did you react after Sean told you you didn't need a condominium? I was nervous at first. But then at the very last moment, Sean gives Don a condominium. And so then, did you have S with Don? Yes. And did he wear a condominium? Yes. For how long did that last? A little while. And how did that end? Don taking the condominium and finishing on me. What was Sean doing while you were having S with Don? Watching. Was he saying anything? Or was he quiet? Or can you remember? I can't remember. Now, after you had S with Don, did Don leave? Yes. And then what did you and Sean end up doing? We were in a really good mood and we just started making love and he was really, really happy. How did that night ultimately end with Sean after Don left? I can't totally remember, but we were together. And we were happy. The next day, do you remember where you went? I went home. Now, before you went home, what, if any, boat trips do you remember taking on that same trip to Miami? Oh, yeah. After that, we actually went to a really nice yacht boat party with him and his friends. So, was that the day after you had first met Don? Yes. And what do you remember about that boat day? It was a lot of fun. We were just all together as a group. And then, did you go home? Yes. Now, immediately after that night, when you got home, how did you feel? I felt exhilarated from that experience. Can you explain why? I felt like I had done something that I never done before. I felt excited. I was happy. It was taboo. It was fun. I had a good time with my partner. What did you think that night represented in your relationship with Sean? I just took that as a night that we just did something so crazy, taboo, and fun and sexy.
What did you think about whether you would do that again? I didn't think we would be doing that again like that. What do you mean? I think that after that night, I figured it was just something that we did that one time. That one time, and maybe a random other night. Maybe we would just do it again. Just something taboo. How, if at all, did your relationship with Sean change after that? After that night, I truly felt that that night just opened like Pandora's box in our relationship. It was just completely set the tone for our relationship moving forward. What do you mean by opening a Pandora's box? I meant that it was just a door that like I was unable to shut for the remainder of the relationship. If you were exhilarated by the first time and you were open to possibly doing it again, why did you feel like this was a door you wanted to shut? Because it was so much of it after and it was too much of it. How much of your relationship did nights where you had S with other men's become with Sean after May of 2021? Objection from Garagos. I'll rephrase. Can you rephrase? I'll rephrase. After the night of May 2021, about what percentage of the time that you saw Sean did you end up having S with another man in front of him? 90%. Did you want that? No. Did you want to have S with other men? No. Who did you want to have S with? Just Sean. Throughout your relationship with Sean, what did you want more than anything? Just to be with Sean? What kind of things did you want to do with Sean during your relationship with him? I just wanted as much as I could, just like have an old fashioned type of relationship where it was just me and him, like how I met him, like how it was. Like how it was in the beginning of 2021? Yes. Did you ever get back the feeling that you had in the beginning of 2021? No. Now at first, after the first night in May of 2021, about how long after did Sean suggest to you to do that again? I would say probably pretty quickly after? Was it the next time you saw him? Yes. And how did you react when Sean suggested doing it again? I was agreeable. And why were you agreeable? Because my partner wanted that. I just wanted to make him really happy. I knew it turned him on, and I just wanted to satisfy my partner. So at first, over the next few months of 2021, about how often did Sean suggest one of these nights where you had S with another man all the time? And at first, in the rest of 2021, did you go along with it? Yes. Why? Because I just really wanted him at this point. I just wanted to make him happy, and I feared losing him. I just wanted to be everything that he wanted, and I wanted our time to be special every single time. And if that made him happy, I was willing to make him happy. After a few months of having S with other men in front of Sean, did you start to tell Sean that you did not want to have S with other men? Yes. And over the rest of nearly 3 years of your relationship, did you tell Sean you did not want to have S with other men? Yes. Did you tell him that once or more than once? More than once. Did you tell him that in writing or verbally? Both. Did you tell him that once or more than once in writing? Objection from Teeny Garagos. Time period, judge. All right? Over the rest of the 3 years of your relationship, so between the end of 2021 and his arrest in 2024, can you estimate how many times you told Sean in writing and verbally that you did not want to have S with other men? Many times in our relationship. Was it throughout the period that I've just set out between the end of 2021 and 2024? Yes. Verbally and in writing? Mostly writing. Did you tell him in person as well? Yes. When you tried to tell Sean in person that you did not want to have S with other men, how did he react? I feel like whatever this topic would come up, it would start off really uncomfortable, and really I could just feel that the tension was building, and I would just kind of push down what I was really wanting to say, and he just was dismissive or just wanted me to move on from the subject. So, what would he say to convey to you that he wanted to move on from the subject? Objection, Your Honor. Objection from Tini Garagos, the defense. Time period, please. Jane, you've talked about a number of different conversations you've had with Sean, right? Yes. Can you remember during those conversations, would he say essentially the same each time or different things? Essentially the same thing. And when he said essentially the same thing, what are the things you remember him saying? Just like we don't have to, or that's fine, or just move on from it, or that, or what are you talking about? You're crazy. What are you even saying right now? Then even we don't have to do it. And I don't know. It was just like rushing me away from the topic. And after he would say that we don't have to do it, what would happen next? We would still do it. Later on in your relationship, well, let me back up. Do you remember the address that we saw on your license earlier? Yes. Do you did you move into that home when you are still in a relationship with Sean? Yes. And who paid for your rent when you moved to that home? Sean. And after Sean started paying for your rent in that home, what, if any, threats did he make to you about that rent when you tried to tell him you do not want to have S with him with other men? Objection, Your Honor, from the defense. The court then asks, is it the same objection? Garrigo speaks. The word threats. The court says, can you rephrase? What did Sean say to you about your rent when you tried to tell him that you did not want to have S with other men? He would just start saying things like, you want to break up? That's fine. Do you need like what? 3 more months in the house? Because I'm not about to be paying for a woman's rent that I'm not even seeing. Now, in those conversations, were you trying to break up with Sean? No. What were you trying to stop doing? I was trying to stop doing these nights. When you were saying these nights, do you mean the nights you had S with other men? Yes. And how did Sean say those things about ending his payment of your rent make you feel in those moments? I felt frustrated. I felt just obligated. What did you feel obligated to do? Perform. Perform? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just perform these nights with him. When you say these nights, do you mean the nights when you had S with other men? Objection from TD Garagos. Time period, Judge. Can we have a quick sidebar, please? The defense is requesting. Court says you may. Okay. So they have a sidebar. All right. And Agnifilo basically starts with the sidebar. Agnifilo speaks. There's constant leading of the witness through critical testimony that's charge conduct. This witness is capable of telling the story, and Miss Comey is using words like threats when this witness didn't use threats. And what a signal to this witness to say something that sounds like threats. This witness should tell her story her way. And we are now, it's fine in the beginning, but this is now leading through a charge conduct. And it's wrong and it's systemic through the entire process of this examination. And it's very serious. This witness wants to say things like, let her say them, not this witness wants to say things. Let her say them. You're the judge. She should say them. She should say what she wants to say her way without threats being interposed or about the type of leading that's going on because it's very prejudicial and we want to hear what this witness has to say of her own volition and of her own story. The court speaks. All right. Well, I've been watching the testimony closely. I haven't seen any improper leading, and the extent to which there was one question in which the word threat was used, I think it was not used to suggest anything to the witness. I think it was just the context of what was being discussed. There was an objection, and then the question was rephrased, so I haven't seen that. But I will watch the questioning closely. And you've now articulated your objection, and Ms. Comey has now heard the objection. Garagos speaks. May I just add one more thing? It would be really great if we could have some time period. I know she's saying after the house, but after the house is a year and a half. And if we could just make the time periods a little bit more clear for the record, that, that's more helpful. The court speaks. Now, that particular objection, when you raise and Ms. Comey adjusted her question, I think is a fair one. So when we get to things like conversations or different events, what happened over of a period of time, if you just add some questions to establish the context, that would be appreciated. Ms. Comey speaks. Your Honor, yes, Your Honor. If I may, I do not intend to be leading this witness. I have rephrased any time there's an objection. And if I hear more leading objections, I will obviously rephrase. With respect to the time period, I'm about to move on, but I will just know that I'm trying to do right now is give an overarching sense of the timeline. And I'm trying, but what I'm about to ask her about is whether the period when she moved into this home until the end of the relationship with Mr. Combs, why she felt obligated, because she just used the word obligated. And I expect what she will say is throughout that whole period, she felt obligated each time because of the rent. And I think it is fair for me to elicit that as opposed to having to go through each individual hotel night. The court speaks. As to the last question that was asked, I would have overruled the objection. So I think that point is well taken. But we've heard Ms. Garrigo's objection. Your Honor, says Ms. Comey, court speaks. In terms of time frame, let's try to, yes, Your Honor, thank you. Okay, Ms. Comey. Okay, Ms. Comey continues speaking. Jane, a moment ago you used the word obligated. I want to focus on a period of time between 2023 and Sean's arrest in 2024. Who was paying rent approximately April of 2023 and Sean's arrest in 2024? Sean. And throughout that same period between spring of 2023 and Sean's arrest in 2024, what, if anything, made you feel obligated to have S with other men in front of Sean? My feeling of obligation really started to stem from the fact that my partner was paying my rent. I want to talk a little bit more about these nights with other men, okay? Okay. What words would you and Sean use to refer to these encounters where you would have S with other men? He would call them debauchery, or hotel nights. I'm going to call them hotel nights, okay? Okay. Would you understand what I mean if I use that term? Yes. Between the first time in May of 2021 and your longer breakup starting around October of 2023, about how often did you see Sean in person? Often. And did the frequency vary over time during those about 2 years? Yes. Were there sometimes longer gaps you didn't see Sean? Yes. And sometimes shorter gaps where you saw him more often? Yes. About how many of those times that you saw Sean in person between May of 2021 and October of 2023 did you end up having a hotel night? Every single time I saw Sean. Now, were there some times when you visited him and got to be alone with him? Yes. About what percentage of time did you spend together with Sean did you get to be alone with him? I would say 30%. How can it be that it was about 30% if just about every time you saw him, you had one of these hotel nights? Because after hotel nights, oh, we would have a couple of days or so together alone, but it still felt to me like a hotel night the whole time. Why did the hotel night? Why did the whole time feel like a hotel night if you had a couple of days just alone with Sean afterwards? Because I would have rather preferred that it was just 100% me and him. Was there a set schedule of the times you would see Sean in person, or was the timing unpredictable? It was unpredictable. Who decided when you would see Sean in person? Sean. How about how much notice did you usually get before Sean asked to see you in person? Not that much notice. Can you give us an estimate of about how much notice you would usually get? Well, it could vary between the night before and the day of, a couple of days before. What, if anything, did you do in your life during your relationship with Sean to make sure you were available to see him whenever he asked? I just always made sure that I had proper childcare in place in the event that he would call me. I would just make sure that I was always put together and just ready for Sean. What do you mean when you say you would make sure that you were always put together and ready? I was always I always made sure that my nails were done, my hair was done, my glam, my tan. Why do you do that? I just liked being beautiful for Sean, and I know he liked me looking beautiful for him. Now, during your relationship with Sean, how many trips did you go on with friends or for yourself? Hardly much. Hardly much. Why? Because I knew Sean wouldn't like that. How did you first learn that Sean wouldn't like you taking a trip by yourself or with other friends? I finally had taken a trip and he was on my phone really just disappointed, really upset, and was just condescending, and he was like in disapproval. Do you remember when this trip was? I would say maybe the summer of 2022. I'm not sure. Are you estimating? Yes. Was it earlier in your relationship? Earlier. What, if any, trip did you take to France in the summer of 2021? So, yes, so I went to the south of France. And who did you go with? A group of girlfriends. And did you tell Sean before you left? No. And what ended up happening after you went on that trip with a group of girlfriends to the south of France without telling Sean? I remember he was just really mean on the phone, on the voice notes, really disappointed. He used the word disappointed, I remember, and it just made me feel really bad. So what did you feel bad about? I felt bad for making him feel bad. Now, what, if anything, did Sean tell you about what he wanted you to look like when you were with him? He liked me having straight hair, or when it was time for us to be together intimately, he liked my hair in a ponytail. He wanted to have light color nails, mostly like a creamy white. And later in our relationship, he wanted me to get a piercing. Where did Sean tell you he wanted you to get piercings? My areas. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit, okay? How much time and money did it take for you to look this way for Sean? Looking nice and presentable took a lot of time of my life, a lot of time in my life. It was kind of like almost every day. And why was it almost every day? Because I wanted to like stay ready and almost became like, I don't know, like a habit. So, what would you do every day to make sure you were ready to see Sean? I would work out. I would always have my nails done, my lashes, my hair. I just always wanted to stay ready and look really nice for him. How much did that cost? A lot. How did being available for Sean at a moment's notice impact your ability to work and make income during your relationship with him? It impacted it a lot. I would say I was with Sean. I was really consumed by him. It was really consumed. I was really consumed by Sean. What income did you make focusing on the time period at the beginning of your relationship in 2021 and that break in October of 2023? In the beginning, I was doing some social media posts, but that started to dwindle down because my presence on social media really declined after I prioritized this relationship. So during your relationship with Sean, what sources of income did you have? Sean and my child support. And how would Sean support you? He would give me money here and there. How often did Sean give you money during your relationship? It was random. What's the most you remember him giving you? Like 20,000? How did he give you that? Wire? What's the average you remember him usually giving you? I would say if it was cash, like 5, 10, and if it was a bit more than that, it would usually be a wire. 5, 10,000? Yes, in cash. In cash? Yes. And what would Sean say when he would give you this money? Objection, Your Honor. Time period, please. Court says that's fair. I can focus it, says Ms. Comey. Let's focus on the 20,000 wire. What do you remember Sean saying when he would give you 20,000? Around this time, I remember mostly like the big wires were because we had moved into the place and the new house and I expressed that we needed furniture. And about how about the cash? Do you remember the first time Sean gave you a few $1,000s in cash? Yes. Do you remember about when that was? When we first moved, first started dating. And what did he say to you when he gave you a few $1,000s in cash? It was just because. Over the course of your relationship, what, if any, conversation did you have with Sean about how you wanted to make your own money? I remember at that time, that was when OnlyFans really started to merge. Let me, so that we can make it clear about the time that we're talking about. I would say approximately on the relation on in the relationship, maybe 2021. Approximately, yes. And did you have a conversation with Sean around that time about wanting to make your own money? Yes. What did you tell Sean? I told Sean that one of my model girlfriends had been really lucrative on this website. And once I started saying OnlyFans, I remember he was like giving me this kind of energy that was like hesitant, like, and like, no. What is OnlyFans? Well, OnlyFans is a membership subscriber website where you could subscribe to models or content creators, anybody really. What kind of content were you suggesting to Sean you would make on OnlyFans? Well, bikini, lingerie, some nudie. Uh, but would it be S acts? No. And how much money did you tell Sean you understood you could make it? You could make if you created an account on OnlyFans. I just remember my girlfriend, she told me that she had made 4 million that year, and I just knew that if I had joined at that time that it would have been lucrative for me. Did you tell Sean that? No. What did you tell Sean? I just said that I'm getting proposed this thing about OnlyFans, and then he would just say like, let's just give it a time and let's think about this. I don't know. When you said, let's just give this time and let's think about this, who did you understand was the let's? Him and I. Why did you feel like you needed Sean's permission to get your own income? Because I felt like in my heart, he was my boyfriend, my significant other, and I wanted his approval. And you mentioned that Sean ended up paying for your rent. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Exhibits are shown. Do you recognize this document? Yes. What is it? A lease. And by the way, the exhibits that are shown are actually under seal. Okay. She says a lease. Okay. Could you just read for us the date next to the date line? I'm not going to have you read anything else, just the date. April 4th, 2023. And is that approximately when you moved into the home that Sean paid the rent for? Yes. And the name of the line that has tenant next to it, without saying it out loud, is that your true name? Yes. And the name next to the word rental property owner, is that your landlord? Yes. And then the address on the next line below, next to the word premise, is that the address of the home? Yes. Okay. Um, and I don't think I highlighted it. I don't think I highlighted it, but how much was the rent on this property? 10,000. 10,000 a month? Yes. Could you afford that much rent on your own? No. And how did you end up deciding to move into a home that had rent of 10,000 a month? I remember Sean and I had a break and we had a fight and we got back together. Sean said, "Let's do a love contract." Okay. And it wasn't like a physical contract, it was just a verbal flirty thing that we were talking about. And he said that he asked me, how much allowance do I want a month moving forward? And I said 15. And then he said 10. When you said 15 and he said 10, do you mean 1,000? Yes. What did Sean say next? He said, okay, then. How did that 10,000 end up getting given to you? So from what so from that number, I at that time just really wanted a bigger space, a bigger yard, just a beautiful home. I just wanted to experience something that was nice just so I could feel some sort of balance in our relationship. And I used that whole allowance for just a comfortable living space. And did Sean agree that instead of giving you 10,000, say in a wire or cash, he would instead pay the rent? Yes. Could we please now pull up what's in evidence? So more exhibits are pulled up. Can you tell us what we're seeing here? Yes, this is an email between myself and the landlord and Sean's accountant. Which name on here is Sean's accountant? Robin. What's her last name? Greenhill. And she's sending this email to, you said, you and your landlord? Yes. And would you please read below, hi, the name of you and your landlord? Would you please read out loud what Robin wrote? Actually, I'll read it to make sure you don't accidentally say a name. Okay. So she writes, please find the bank account information highlighted dates May 11, 2023 for Jane's rent. I have also highlighted the bank confirmation number. Please let us know if you do not see the deposit on your side so we can track it ASAP. Did I read that correctly? Yes. Okay. Do you have an understanding of what this is? It's a looks like a wire transfer. Oh yes, it's a wire transfer. For what? The deposit. To pay your rent? Yes. Okay. I want to focus again on the period between May of 2021 and your first break with Sean. Your break with Sean in October of 2023 over that period. In what city or countries did you see Sean in person? In Turks and Caicos, I saw him in Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. And what, if any, trips did you take? Well, actually, withdraw. At how many of those locations did you and Sean have a hotel night? All of them. How did you travel to those places outside of Los Angeles? I would take a plane. Who arranged your plane? Sean. Did Sean himself arrange the travel? No, his travel agent, Jess. Who else on Sean's staff would you have conversations with about your travel plans? It would vary between the assistants, KK, Jess. Do you know Jess' last name? I don't. Who paid for your travel? Sean. Did each of these hotel nights with Sean typically follow the same pattern or were they different each time? They typically follow the same pattern, focusing on the period between May of 2021 and October of 2023. In what type of building did most of these hotel nights take place? Hotels. In what type of rooms were these nights? Regular rooms, regular hotel rooms or suites? suites. How were the suites decorated? They had red lights, music, beverages, red lights, music, alcohol. What if any coverings would be there on the furniture? There would be bed sheets covering everything, blankets, towels. Why were there bed sheets, blankets, and towels? For the excessive use of the baby oil everywhere? About how many bottles of baby oil would you use in a single hotel night? Objection from Teeny Garagos. Sustains is the court. You can rephrase. How often would you use baby oil on one of these hotel nights? Often, all the time. Were there any hotel nights that you didn't use baby oil? No. About how much baby oil do you remember using during each of these hotel nights? I would say like 2 dozen or more. 2 dozen or more what? Bottles of baby oil. I like to now pull up what is into evidence so more evidence and exhibits are pulled up. So Jane, we can you see that on the screen? Yes. Do you recognize this? Do you recognize what this is? Yes. What is this? It's a text conversation between Sean and I. He's and what's the date of the text conversation? Well, this is on August 31st, 2022. Okay? And Jane, would you read please what you wrote to Sean in these two messages? I said, when you pull up, have security or whatever catch the bag with the keys. I have to throw it down. Would you please read the next text? Then give them their own set. And then on the next page, okay, Sean responds, okay, what's the address? And without reading it out loud in your response, do you then provide your address at that time? Yes. Why were you giving Sean your address at that time on August 31st, 2022? Because he was coming over? And do you remember what he was coming over for? I remember he was coming over to visit me and do one of these nights, but at my residence at the time, not a hotel. About how many of these nights would other men do you remember having with Sean at this location, this residence? I would say a handful of times. What kind of home was this? An apartment? Okay. Now, Jane, did the S activity during hotel nights generally follow the same pattern or routine, or was it different each time? It generally followed the same pattern. And how did you learn that pattern? Within the time, I just realized that he liked things. He would tell me what he liked, what he wanted to see. He would just, even from the very beginning, tell me what he wanted to see. And during them, he would suggest that I would do what I would do next or what I would do and encourage them more or less of whatever he wanted to see. You use the word he a lot in that answer. Who is he? Sean. What did you wear during these hotel nights? I wore provocative lingerie and really high trippy shoes. Where did the lingerie come from? They came from S stores. Excuse me? They came from S stores. Okay. And who would typically buy the lingerie from S stores? Typically me. And who would pick which lingerie you would wear during the hotel nights? I would buy them myself and then I would show him what I had. Show who what you had, Sean. And then what would Sean say? He would choose which outfit he liked. Now, during a typical hotel night, usually would you what would you and the other men do first? Objection, Your Honor, from Teeny Garagos. Court says rephrase. Jane, you said that the hotel nights generally follow the same pattern of routine of S activity. Do I have that right? Yes. I'd like to walk through what the typical pattern or routine was across hotel nights, okay? Okay. Could you tell us in the typical routine or pattern, how did it usually begin? I would greet the person and I would say hello and just be really nice and sweet and kind of them. Make small talk with who? Whoever the entertainer was. And then you say the entertainer, what are you referring to? An escort. And after you had small talk and greeted the entertainer in a typical night following the pattern or routine that we've discussed, what happened next? They would be undressed in shorts. I would come out in a robe. Music would be playing. I would start to already be high or have rugs in my system, I would start dancing, slow dancing, just to kind of get my nerves out and kind of start the night for energy of that, and then derobe, and things would escalate, and the play between us and the man actually throughout that. I'm sorry, go ahead. So Comey interrupts Jane Doe. Actually, that's a few steps before that is typically the O would start happening. Then I would start dancing and I would put oil on the man and things like that. You said the oil. What oil are you referring to? Baby oil. And why were you using baby oil? Because that's what Sean really liked. How did you learn that? Well, from the beginning of our S life, that's what he liked to introduce before S. So, focusing again on the pattern or routine of these nights as you go through the first phase, pouring oil on the man or yourself, dancing. And Sean typically would be getting a master's degree. And then what was the next part of the typical routine or pattern of these nights in your experience? In my experience, it would be just a long and prolonged play moment between me and this guy, and I would just sit there, and he wanted me to torch torching the other men. You said he wanted you to yourself. Who is he, Sean? How would you know he wanted you to torch? He would tell me. You said that this period would be long. About how long in a typical hotel night would that period last? Those moments would last a very long time. I can't typically think of hours or I don't know, just really long. Why would they last so long? Because he really enjoyed watching me and have the other man stand and just watch these like really otic moments happening between me and the man. You said he. Who is he? Sean. And how would you know that that's what he watched? Because he would tell me. After the first phase, again, in a typical pattern of these hotel nights, what would typically happen next? Typically, after that, it would be time for S. And what kind of S would typically happen first? S between me and forgive me for asking this, but OS or course first, OS. You said it would be time for that. How would you know it would be time for OS? It varied between Sean telling me or me just starting it. Why would you just start it? Because I knew that it would more and kind of speed things up. Why did you want to speed things up? Because I just wanted to speed things up. And how long would the OS last typically in usual hotel nights? Long time, like many hours. Why would it last so long? Because that's what Sean preferred to see. How did you know that? Because that's what he would tell me. That's what he would like to watch. He says it was from the very beginning that that's what he wants to see more of. Is me doing stuff doing stuff to others. Over these hours, who would perform OS on whom? I would perform or OS on the man. And the typical pattern of one of these hotel nights, what would typically happen after those hours of OS? Then we would move into who would usually suggest moving into the bedroom to have S? Me. Why you? Because I just really wanted to be done so I could just be with my partner. And why would moving to the bedroom help you be done? Because then that would mean that they would finish and then I could just be with my partner. When you say finish, do you mean emancipate? Yes. And you would move into the bedroom on a typical hotel night, following through the pattern and routine we're talking about. What would typically happen next? After the man would finish, then the man would be excused. While you were having what would Sean typically do? Get a master's degree and watch? And what, if anything, would he say? Would he say anything or no? Are you talking about S? I'm asking typically. Walking through the routine of a typical hotel night, would Sean usually talk or say something while you were having S with other men or no? Yes, he would say, "Do you want to feel some of that and just let me in, like finish and do something?" When Sean would say, let him finish, what did you understand Sean was saying to you? Emancipate. And how long would the course typically last during one of these nights? It could last quite a while. And how would it end each time? With the man fit? You mean emancipating? Yes. And when you say right outside of you, do you mean right outside of? Yes. And after the man finished, you said that he would be excused. Who would excuse him? Sean. And after the man was excused, what would you and Sean do? That's when me and Sean would begin to make love. Would you clean up the emancipation in between? No. Is what we just walked through a typical single round of an S encounter with an entertainer during the hotel night? Yes. How many of these how many of those rounds that you just described would you typically have in a single hotel night with Sean? If it was objection, Your Honor, objection from Tina Garagos. You mean like, okay, the court says, hold on, because Jane Doe is still talking. Time period, Your Honor. Of course, that's the objection for Garagos. Okay, Ms. Coney, can you rephrase the question? Jane, in a typical hotel night, you said that these nights followed a typical pattern. Do I have that right? Yes. And a typical routine. Do I have that right? Yes. And in that pattern and routine, the S activity that you described for us, going from play to OS to the course to S with Sean, how many times would you repeat that pattern? Would you only do it once or would you do it more than once in a single hotel night? In a single hotel night, sometimes it would happen more than once with one person, and then maybe more than once with another person. In total, how long did a typical hotel night last? Like 24 to 30 hours or more. Were you able to sleep at all during that time? No. Okay, Your Honor, I think this is a good place to break, says Miss Comey for the day. Okay. Okay, so the members of the jury are excused, right? But this is the interesting part. So the jury's excused, Jane Doe is excused, and before all these people are excused, but the attorneys and the judge usually stay behind, right? They had this conversation, and I have to highlight it because I think is, today is Saturday for me. Yesterday was Friday, and we were talking about how Jane Doe's attorney was like upset with YouTubers disclosing Jane Doe's information, right? Here's that conversation that happened on Thursday. Okay. And this is Thursday. It's the first time that, again, that Jane Doe is testifying, but it completely tags into what happened on Friday. Okay. Your Honor, I learned that Jane's counsel would ask Your Honor, remind everyone in the gallery to the extent that they could see any personal identifying information on the screen of the attorneys during the examination that they are not to report on it or record it. All right, you've now said it, says the court. Thank you, Your Honor. Now, from this, the government said there's nothing further. They kind of address, and the court is kind of saying, like, you guys can't be taking information. Okay. Now from here, Agnifilo speaks, and he wants to take the marshals for allowing them to stay in the courtroom until 6 o'clock because it's been tremendously helpful for them. They've been able to look at material, and so the marshals are basically thanked on the record for this. The defense goes on to address some issues with the court about their ability to get a hold of Diddy and phone calls and stuff like that. So that is still a continued issue here. But ultimately, they adjourn and it all ends. Nothing too eventful at the very end, other than that. And of course, all the exhibits that they submitted, just to give you guys an idea, okay? And the defendants and defendants' exhibits and everything. Guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me just say this. I want to thank everybody for subscribing, liking, sharing this video, for your support of the transcripts. This is amazing because it adds a lot more context. Like I said, I'm really behind and I'm trying to catch up as much as I can. But, luckily we're done. I'm still waiting for the transcripts for Friday's Jane Doe all day. So we're going to be reviewing those next. But while you're watching this was the first day that Jane Doe came to the stand. Let me know what you guys think. Hit the like button. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.